I encourage everyone to take a moment and breathe and take a tea cheers with a Jiri tea. A Jiri tea recognizes the beauty in shared stories and shared opportunities. Ajiri sources award-winning tea from Kenya, employs women in the region to handcraft the labels, and sends 100% of the profits back to the region to support orphan education. Save 10% on your order of Kenyan teas and coffee with the code BeautifullyHuman at ajiritea.com. AJIRIT.com. Tea mugs up. Hello, and welcome to the Beautifully Human podcast. I'm Nick Sheesby. In this podcast, I speak with beautiful humans from all around the world, sharing with you their incredible stories, revealing the power in every human story to spread love and humanity to a world that is in desperate need of it, to show that we can all connect in beautiful ways no matter where we come from or what we look like. What you will find out is that we are all beautifully human. Let's all be beautifully human. All right. Today's beautiful human that I am chatting with is a good friend of mine, Evan Pierri. And we get to talking about life as kids, riding around town all over the place. We talk about music. We talk about coffee and adventures and travel all around the world. What a fun chat this was, man. If you enjoy this podcast, follow us on Spotify, rate and subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts. It truly does help. I really appreciate that. Give us a follow on Instagram at the Beautifully Human Podcast. And most of all, enjoy this beautiful chat. And don't forget to leave those peace signs up. Yeah. So we've talked a lot about back in the day, but tell me about just your life, man. Growing up, tell me all about that.
I grew up in Howell, New Jersey, which is, I don't want to say it's a small town, but it's a reasonably sized town in Monmouth County in New Jersey, not too far from the beach. So, I think the interesting thing to correlate to our current life and where we live in Nashville is I truly miss that feeling of being near the ocean. I love Nashville. I love it because it's growing. We have a lot of friends here, which I truly value, and it's a young, sprawling city, but I really miss just that feeling of drive 10 minutes, stare off into nothingness. A thing that's uncontrollable, not really understandable. It's the sea, it's one of the scariest things on earth. If you ask me.
Me too.
Grew up in New Jersey though. We jokingly, before we started recording off mic, about you could ride past your friend's house and go, oh, Nick's bike is out there. He must be home. Like if his bike is like tipped over in front of his parents' house, he must be inside.
Yeah.
You would deduce, because if the bike wasn't there, he might be elsewhere. And so, Nick literally said to me, like, these kids are never going to understand just running up to their friend's house, knocking on the door in hopes that they're there, because they're just going to text each other, where are you? Like, that didn't exist in our,
right.
Maybe a phone call at that point. You would call the house that you had to try to remember your friend's number or have it written down next to the phone,
Yeah.
Nick's house.
Or a phone book.
Or a phone book, yeah.
And it's so strange how it was such a common thing to do, to be like, oh, Ev's at home. There's his bike, or, Evan and Lindsay's bikes are laying right there. So they're probably hanging out. I'll go hang out. But now it's like, you don't even go to people's doors. Even that was just such a thing we did, of just like, oh, let's just go knock on the door and see if they're home.
I think about, and I feel that our generation, our parents sort of clamped down on it a little bit more. I think every generation, right? It's like every decade, right? Your parents sort of knew a little bit more about where you could have been at any given moment, because technology caught up and safety became a thing. And,
right.
I listened to a podcast where they did a whole episode about McGruff.
Oh
the
man.
crime dog, which that's such our generation. So like my favorite podcast, technically they mostly talk about theme park related things, but they're also just, they make me feel like less of a weirdo because it's their slant on the world was so close to how my slant on the world was when we were like 10, let's say.
Yeah.
But anyway, you think about that, and so like that part of society changed, and they had things like McGruff explaining to kids like, don't talk to strangers, don't go up to strange things, don't, and so you start to like pare that all down. But at 13, I was riding my bike miles away from home. My parents had no idea where, and my goal was just to make it home before it got dark or by a certain time.
Yep.
But I think now, like, I rode my bike so far away from home, technically on roads where there shouldn't have been 13-year-olds on bikes.
Yeah.
And I'm sure to this day they still don't know that. They could assume I went somewhere, but like I definitely went further than I probably ever should have gone. And they had no way to find me.
Right.
The only way that potentially, if I didn't turn up, like I would have been picked up in a cop car and brought home
Yeah.
had I done something wrong, which I never would have, or someone's mom would have called them from 10 miles away or whatever. Right.
Yeah.
But other than that, I was just out and off and no, I just think of that all the time where it's like kids now, like, I mean, I'd probably be tracing my kid's cell phone at this point.
Right. Yeah. Dude. It's as I think back on it, it's just such a freedom we had as kids. It was that come back when the street lights come on and check in, have dinner, do some homework, go back out, and then you just go. And there were many times that I would just meet up with friends and we'd be riding around town, and there would be no way for my parents to know. I mean, even in a small town, you know, sure, there's not a ton of places I could have been, but there's a ton of places I could have been that they had no idea.
I just think it's such a different, my parents were the same, but on the flip, they lived in such a small city growing up, right across from New York. It's Hoboken is the name of the city. Now it's like the most hip bajillion-dollar place, but when they were growing up, it was the small city across from New York. But if they were out doing something stupid, Jimmy's grandmother's sister saw them out the window and called their parents,
right.
like, because they knew their parent. It was like they couldn't. It was almost the same as it is now, except it was the grandma system of cell phone dial, telephone down, true, like yelling out the window style.
Yeah.
Like, you guys are in trouble. So if you talk to my parents, just because they grew up where they grew up, it was the same as kids now, because they'd be caught instantly just because everybody knew everybody. It was like that small of a city in an era where kids were just running amok constantly. But I don't know. I just, I hope for this generation of kids right now that they all just get to go back outside and be able to hang out with their friends in general because of the last year of life. But 2, I hope that they do it.
Yeah, me too.
Grew up in New Jersey, though. Spent literally my whole life there until I graduated from college. I even went to college in New Jersey. I went to Rider University, which is not far from Princeton, both the city and the university. And there are times where I wished I hadn't. I wished I had been a little bit more exploratory and looked at schools elsewhere, but I don't know, enjoyed that time of my life too. And that led me to traveling and being on the road and sleeping in a van with a bunch of other dudes my age and going on adventures. And I don't know. Yeah, I guess to jump way back again. So New Jersey, played sports growing up, was in the Boy Scouts, which I know is polarizing in 2021. I feel like it's a pretty polarizing organization. I had a lot of great takeaways from it. I think it helped shape how I handle situations as an adult and think about things and am empathetic towards people. And both parents were pretty involved in it. My mom more so at the like younger kid level and Cub Scouting, and then my dad ultimately became he was the leader of the troop. He was the scoutmaster for years, even years after I was out. So, lucky to have both parents who are active in my life growing up and super supportive, and a little hard on me at times to finish things and push through stuff. But I think that's where I get my sort of, not just work ethic, but like buzz about doing things and trying to keep them and make them as perfect as I can. And I love them for it. I tell them now, like, I love you guys for my work ethic, but I hate you sometimes too, because I just can't sit still. And yeah, I mean, rad family. Like, we don't have a super large, extensive family. I have an older half brother, and we have an interesting relationship and did growing up. And then I have a cousin, my mom's sister's daughter, who's basically like my sister. Funny enough, the three of us, so my brother, my half brother, and I, and my cousin, we all have the same birthday. We were all born on the same day. It's the funniest thing. I always, at my cousin's wedding, she's a year literally to the day older than me. And I said, and then I stole her thunder by being born on her birthday the next year. So we are super close. She's like the sister I didn't have, and I think partially because our moms are super close. And yeah, we're a year apart, so we grew up together, doing almost everything together. And I sort of needed that because I have an older brother, and I saw him off and on, and to have a sister like person in my life, I think was important because it made me see a lot of things differently. Like I have a pretty strong mom who is very smart and wise and opinionated, and I love her for that. And I got to see what a strong woman could look like, who worked her ass off, and early in life, and then took some time off when I was young, and then went back into corporate America for years. And so it's interesting. So, but then to have another female character in my life that's my age, that's pushing me to do things, and also is a little bit more of a outlandish character than me, and always making fun of me because I was very cautious, as I always have been growing up. So she's always been the person. She's like, can you please just take an edible? I think you need to take an edible. I think that'd be good for you. She's like, they're legal now. You should just take them. It would help. I think you're a little frantic sometimes. And I'm like, we'll see.
Yeah.
But yeah. And then, so college, New Jersey. And ultimately from there, I had a super close friend in college whose older sister was in the music industry, and got an internship post-college, which is like apparently the most illegal thing of all time now, because you're supposed to be like 4 credit, all accredited, lined up by the book thing. And I was just coming in saying, I've finished, I'm done. I just want to learn what I can learn. And off I went. I met a band, 4 Year Strong, from Massachusetts, while I was interning there. And my only goal through school was I wanted to finish and ultimately maybe open a small business. I have a degree in entrepreneurship. But my first goal was like, I just want to go on the road. I want to travel. I want to get out of here. I want to see other places. Yeah. And I knew that I was not talented enough to be, I never wanted to be the band. I never wanted to be the artist. I just knew from my teenage years. I had friends that I would follow around that let me carry equipment in and like get to see behind the curtain. And I always think about them because without them, they were years older than me. So if I was a freshman in high school, they were like juniors and seniors at that point. Yeah. Like they were driving old kids that they would just drag me along with them. And I'm sure everybody was like, what is this nerdy 15-year-old kid doing with y'all? And there I was, like I took photos and I built websites, and I found a weird way in that wasn't holding a guitar. Yeah. And got to start to see like, what are these other, there are people at these like small, like I loved punk and pop punk growing up, and you'd be like, there are other people working right now that aren't the artists, and who are they and what are they doing? And it took a while to figure out what. In college, I got a better understanding of that, but yeah, I just wanted to find a way in.
Yeah.
And yeah, sleeping in a van, selling merchandise. That was my start. And my second college, my university of the music industry and touring.
Yeah.
So
that'll do it real quick.
Yeah.
I'm kind of the same. I have to give my brother massive credit because he played in a ton of bands, and I was the kid that was always more interested in filming. And so I'd go to his shows, and I'd be that annoying person that was like, you can't be up front, I have to be right here, or wherever I wanted to be. And then we would watch the show after they finished. We would go after what I know now is load out, and we'd go back to the apartment, and we'd get food, and we'd watch so they could see what their show looked like. And I thought that was cool. Never in a million years did I think it would lead to where I am now. But as I look back on it, I'm like, yeah, that definitely did it. That sparked an interest enough in me. And then I would set up my brother's drum set or tear it down for him so he could go talk to people. And it was like, now looking back, then I still would never, in those moments, I wouldn't have been like, yeah, I'm going to go on tour with this band or go on tour ever. That was never in my wheelhouse. So it's cool that you had that kind of same experience of.
I think, and I hate to use the word, but as you were saying that, it sort of desensitizes you a little bit to the fact that people in bands, artists, musicians, solo artists, whatever we're talking about, they're just people also.
Yeah.
And I understand the true super fan. You need those. They need those to be successful. They need those to get other fans interested.
Yeah.
I just never, there are things I appreciate. There are artists I love. There are artists that I probably would lose it internally if I met them at this point of my life.
Yeah.
But to me, they were always just people. They were doing cool shit and I loved it. But and that's why I think we've been able to be successful at what we've done, because you're able to break it down to and I think it's ultimately what every fan wants. They want to be able to just have a conversation with this person, but they can't, because they can't keep it together to have a conversation. And I feel like we've probably both seen that firsthand. And to me, it's like, yeah, these, there have been times where somebody's like, oh my God, you're like, you're doing this thing for Mariah Carey? I'm like, yeah, listen, I love Mimi too. She's my favorite, but like, I'm working, There's a gig today. Like, I'm not even work for her. I'm just here working. Yeah. And the byproduct is I get to see the show, which I normally probably wouldn't have. But yeah, to me, it's just, she's still Mariah Carey. Don't get me wrong. But yeah, the curtain's been peeled back too far, Oz style. So I just don't,
Yeah. And I mean, I think I get that a lot talking to fans, and it's just like what are they like? And I'm going, think of the people, the band, the people that were playing in bands in your high school. And then they go, what do you mean? I'm like, well, these people that are playing your favorite music had to start in a garage somewhere. They had to have a parent or a friend or someone buy them something. So it started off as just a human sitting on a couch writing a song. It started off at a human level, and now they're superstars. So ego comes into it, sure, but so many people that I work with are just so nerdy. They're just people that have a massive obsession with the guitar, or, and I'm like, I don't know what to tell you. I'm not going to oversell them. They're people that make fucking awesome music, sure, but like, they're just really down to earth people, most of them.
My favorite example of that, and I doubt he'll ever listen to this, but if he did, for some reason, shout out Phil Bozeman in Whitechapel. He's 5'5", tiny dude, sounds like a demon on record and in live shows, but he's a tiny human. And if you came, I think the craziest thought with like talking to metalheads is, what's it like back there? What do you guys listen to? It's like, dude, Phil Bozeman driving the van at midnight by himself up there. Everybody else trying to sleep in the van. Dude's playing City in Color and chill thing. We're not listening to death metal at 12 o'clock at night driving through the middle of Nebraska. We're not.
Right.
And I think that for fans probably would be mind-boggling. To some, not to all.
Sure.
But to some, fans would be, that kid, after he comes off stage, he's quiet in a corner, keeps to himself. At least in that timeline, I think all of us have grown as adults now, further into adulthood, but he's like very quiet and off-putting and does his own thing and keeps to himself. And then it sounds like something you've never heard, and it's aggressive and it's wild for an hour.
Yeah.
And then it's back to just quiet in a corner. And that part that interested me more from a human standpoint, like you just said, that dude and that band, people would always be like, I bet you guys just listen to like Pantera. It's like, no, these guys are more diverse than that. They play this, you enjoy this, and you listen to only metal exclusively, but they have to find influence and understanding of other genres to like do what they do. And so, yeah, that part was always intriguing to me. It's like kids that love these hyper specific genres. Dude, your heroes listen to other thing. They have to. They've had to expand their musical palette. They have to.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's so cool. Like, even, going back to, you were talking about jazz earlier, and I'm like, you can't listen to metal without seeing the classical influence, or, all of these new iterations of what music has become, which is so rad. It all stemmed from the start of jazz and classic, like even before jazz, classical. It all came from there. So everyone's drawing influence from every other style of music. I've toured with rap artists, and they love punk and metal. They're like skate kids, but they love rap, and that's what they can do. That's their musical contribution. But they, like, this one kid I worked with, he would play nails before his meet and greets, and he was a SoundCloud rapper. And people would be like, these kids would be walking in, and they were terrified because they were like, what is this? I was like, yeah, there's other music out there, and that's what he likes. He wanted me to play it, and it was just so funny to see, well, it's not even funny. It's just diversity. You have to have that in music. Like, I love every style of music. When people are like, what's your favorite kind? I'm like, I just love music.
So, I mean, same. I would say for years I probably said something to the effect of everything but country. But now I actually, I enjoy, I think there's a place for it. I think there's a timeline of it. I think I love some current country. I don't love all of it. But especially living in Nashville, you start to appreciate the song. Yeah. The song holds the power in that genre. The lyrics. What's the picture we're painting?
Totally.
Because most of them are painting a picture, more so than other genres in my mind. I would say I'm an appreciator of most and all music at this point.
I'm going to ask you about some other stuff that came out of your musical career,
sure.
Your music industry career. It's the travel aspect, something we both dearly miss, not even in the sense of just traveling for work, but what are some of your favorite places you've been?
So far, top that I've been, I loved Australia. Only got to go for a very brief moment in time. I'd love to get back there at some point. Such a long plane ride, but it's on my bucket list. And then more recently, finally made it to Central and South America and really loved Buenos Aires.
Oh, yeah.
Cool city. Doesn't feel like South America, feels like Europe, obviously, for specific reasons that I learned while I was there, that a lot of German folks ended up there after World War II and made it very European, and they technically fled there and were able to seek refuge for better or worse there in some cases. But it's weird. It's like it's a Central and South America influence city, and then there's European influence there as well. So it's in 2021, as much as we've unearthed a lot of disparities and things like that, for better or worse, it feels like you're in a European city, but it also is very much South America. And it was just it was cool to me. They have a little bit of a coffee culture there, which I loved. Like, you can find it. And I don't know, it was just cool to see. We got to travel and go into the Recoleta, which is the famous cemetery there, which is where
Cool.
Evita is like the most famous person who is buried there. But you don't see that here. Like, we have mausoleum-ish things in the States, but we're still such a young country compared to everywhere else in the world for the most part, that you just don't see it. And it was crazy. Beautiful, creepy. You know, people still like go down into them to pay respects to their relatives if it's like their family's site. I don't know.
I love cemeteries.
Do you?
I'd love them. I go to them everywhere I go. I try to go to a cemetery. I think it's a beautiful way to find out about the culture and how they respect life.
Sure.
Which is, I've told that to people before and they think it's weird, but I'm like, if you respect your dead, that tells you a lot about the respect they have for humans that are alive.
Yeah.
You know, if it's just kind of thrashed, you know, maybe they didn't take as good a care of people. I mean, in the Baltic states, when I was in Estonia, there were so many that we went to that they were like, well, there was a shortage and like all the roads were getting all fucked up. So we took gravestones and would just like use them
to pave the road.
To pave the roads.
Wow.
So it was like, and that was out of necessity.
Right.
But
economic
like,
disparity. Yeah. Wow.
You know, so it's just an interesting look at culture when you go to that place, those places.
I mean, it's the only thing we're truly guaranteed in this life, huh? We all end up somewhere like that.
Yeah, and I mean, also on that note, it's just like you think of like the one up in Madison, this big one that you see going up Gallatin, and you know, it's like, okay, this person, it's their final resting place, and imagine, say it's 1913 on the gravestones when they passed. To think of what it looked like in 1913 versus the billboards and the cars speeding past, you know, it's like such an interesting look at like time stopped for this person right here, you know, and then everything else kept going, just keeps going and adapting. But that, you know, that was like a finite part. So I think I love that you brought that up.
Yeah.
But also, I have one question, and then I'm going back into another question of something you brought up. I always like to ask, if obviously COVID restrictions aside, if I gave you a plane ticket to anywhere in the world,
Tokyo, I can answer that. You don't have to finish the question. That's it. I put a poll up the other day. I feel like Twitter, obviously, in the last couple of weeks, has been a funny place to watch and exist and live. I bounce in and out of it. When it was the thing, the only real, true, like immediate social media, I think I was using it just as much as everybody else. And then I've like dipped off for less social media in general, but maybe just more. I like the Instagram format because I like a visual format. But every so often I do dip back to Twitter, and I put a poll up, and I just said, okay, same question you just asked. Where would you go? And I listed Tokyo. I should have just said Japan, but I want to go there first and then go elsewhere. I said Tokyo, Disneyland, I think I put Dubai on it, and then Aruba. And top two, Tokyo and Aruba, which, yes, I want to go to Tokyo and experience this, to me, completely unique culture. And then, I also would love to just lay on a beach somewhere. But Tokyo for sure. No questions asked. I've been watching videos of Japanese YouTubers who have showcased some of the travel methods over there. I love that. All of the I've watched videos of the American dude version of that too, where it's like he's had like Japanese older men look at him and be like, "Please be quiet." No, shh, you know, because he's being a tall, loud American, and he's acknowledged that, which I appreciate that he recognizes that he's a tall, obnoxious, loud American YouTuber. Fine, but the Japanese kids, they just film and then they type in, so they're just quiet.
Yeah,
and I love that because it it lets you see what the experience is, and then unless their English is great, they're probably translating somewhere in there too, which is just cool to see. Like they're trying to reach a broad audience to show what does the cheapest version overnight train look like where you can lay down. And it was the craziest thing. It was like, it said, I think the ticket to get from, let's say, Tokyo to the end of the line still probably costs something, but to be in that specific cabin, so to be able to lay down, right, it was $5 American dollars.
It's amazing.
Plus, I think the way I understood it is plus the ticket, like the train ticket. So it still could cost more. I don't know how much more, but that same YouTuber covered that, and then he covered like the nicest cabin, like sleeper cabin with a bed, with a, but even the open one, it was neat and clean, and you got a blanket, like a duvet style blanket. Like it was open. It looked like you were just like laying in a carpet. It had a little bit of privacy by your head, like a little bit of a wall carved out. So like at least if you laid down, you weren't laying next to the person.
Sure.
But like, little curtain that didn't block out much light. So you're just in an open cabin essentially, but you still had a full place to lay down, which I was like, you're not finding that in America. I'd take that.
It wouldn't be clean either.
The clean part too. Everybody takes their shoes off before they, like, obviously because it's Japan culturally, but like to get onto your area to lay, you have to like take your shoes off still in the train car. It's just this respect thing. And I was just like, I want to see this culture so bad. It's at the top of my list. It was on my 2020 travel list before the pandemic happened. That was like my goal, was to get there somehow last year. I'd saved up so many points, travel points. I don't know. They have an amazing coffee culture. Just like I want to see their sneakers culture, which I'm not a sneaker head by any means, but I know that it's huge there.
Right.
Just their like hype beast culture, which that's not what I'm into at all, but I know that it's just next level there. I just want to see all of it.
Yeah.
I want to go to Shibuya. I want to go to I want to go see Mount Fuji. I want to go by train. I want to do all of it. I want to go spend a couple weeks for sure. So, but yeah, Japan definitely at the top of my list. And that's why I've been trying to, it's nice to watch these travel videos to learn, but also just to remind yourself like, okay, this is still happening. And those videos that this kid posted were recent. So like in the pandemic, he was showing this stuff. So they're still traveling. Like everybody's just wearing a mask. And I think Japan has sort of crunched down their COVID scenario as well. But anyway, so Japan. Yeah, for sure.
I will say I've asked a lot of people this question now, and I've gotten a lot of beautiful answers.
Okay.
And a lot of it is Japan. And I fully understand. It's high on my list of places to see. And especially with Lindsay's cousins, they just moved over there and they get daily photos of just the life and the culture. It just seems beautiful.
They also just from from the last year standpoint, from what I've read, culturally, the mask scenario, it was part of their culture. Yeah. It's like, okay, grandma doesn't feel well. She's wearing a mask. So she is protecting herself and us. She doesn't want to give us what she has, but she also doesn't want to get worse.
Right.
So when this whole, when we have a pandemic and we have a virus, I feel like their prime minister just said, okay, everybody's grandma. You're everybody's grandma now. Right. Everybody's sick. Yeah. We're all sick. Right. Wear a mask. And they just did it. Yeah. And I think they still have a rate, but they crushed it because culturally it's not a political shield. It's not a thing that didn't exist in their society. Then, oh man, now everybody has to find a mask. Everybody in their society probably just has them at home in some capacity. Yeah. Like it's not to like make your whole family put a mask on. You just went, hey, we saw this on the news. Everybody put their mask on when they go out tomorrow. And then they kept it under control, more under control than elsewhere in the world. So
yeah, and it is that respect. Just like, I don't feel well, I'm going to cover myself. So I don't spread it. I know I need to keep moving around, but I don't want to give you what I got. And it's, the respect.
To not linger on it too long, but also I love theme parks. It's like one of my favorite things in the world. I love traveling to far off places and seeing real places, but I also love theme parks and that reality escape. And their Disney parks are touted as the best in the world, like better than the original to some people. To Tokyo Disneyland, from what I know, it's run by a separate group. So they basically license out all the Disney stuff.
Gotcha.
It's called the Oriental Land Company. They're the ones that put up the money to build it. They pay like a royalty back to Disney. And that park was built in the 80s. And basically the president of that company went through both existing Disney parks, so Disneyland and then Disney World, that whatever was built at the time, and just said, I want this, I want this, we don't want that, I want this ride. And so the Disneyland there is like the greatest hodgepodge of everything that existed to that point. And then they built a second park in, I think, the early 2000s called Disney Sea, and it is one of the, if you ask anybody, it's the greatest Disney park in the world. From a visual, a thematic, it has some of the more unique rides. And when you talk to people that this is their like livelihood or they've truly studied these things, they're the cleanest parks in the world.
Sure.
And everything is kept up and running like clockwork. The rides, like down to the maintenance level, and the like, people have explained, like, there's a ride that exists in Disneyland in California. It's a Roger Rabbit themed ride, and it's gotten rough over the years in terms of like the upkeep. And the person that was explaining this said like they went on the one in Tokyo and they were like, it's like 1993. So it looks like it hasn't aged a day, because it just at the level of care. And that's not to take away anything and how hard the people work in any of the other Disney parks, especially in the States, because they're usually the ones pushing the envelope and of technology and change and whatever. But yeah, Tokyo, just like in Tokyo and then in Japan, just their level of like maintaining things and their care for most things, at least public facing things, is crazy. So yeah, it's on my list. I want to see that park. Everybody that I know that's gone says it's like the greatest and crazy. So
awesome. You've touched on it twice now, so I'm going in on it. Because I knew this about you somewhat, but I've never actually talked to you about it. Coffee.
Yes.
Tell me about it.
It's been a learning process, something that I've found solace in, quiet in. I think young me, like everyone else, when you got a chance to press that button at an event or a party, and it was like, hey, let me get that cappuccino, and it was just basically like a sugar drink. That was my first memories of air quotes coffee as a kid. Just it was a dessert drink, let's be real. But that's what I remember, and I couldn't wait. And then in New Jersey, we have a chain called Wawa, which is pretty notorious in touring circles for those people who didn't grow up in New Jersey or the Northeast or like the greater New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania area. It's expanded further out now. You can find them in other, but it's a quick stop store and now a gas station. And they have always, at least in more modern times, have a full service, like quick service meal platform where you can just order a sandwich or order food at any time. So like from a touring perspective, when you're somewhere at 2 a.m. and everybody's hungry, you can just, there's always a counter. Like there's always like a working, essentially deli or, hot food counter. And, it's quick service, fast food. But anyway, they also have a crazy coffee bar selection. Literally like 20 different flavored coffees, every creamer imaginable. So like young me, like that was it. I would just like pour off a coffee, French vanilla. Like I would get a French vanilla, air quotes, roast coffee and then dump French vanilla creamer in it. And so that was it. That, like that's what especially growing up in New Jersey, everything's quick. You're like, I got to go somewhere. I'm getting up in the morning, but then I'm getting on the parkway to drive to my job. So like I need to run into this place, mix this stuff together and run out the door. And I was just, coffee was like, it was dessert. I was drinking dessert. And fast forward to coming into touring in 2007, I was drinking mostly tea at that point, iced tea and just hot tea. And without getting way TMI, there were just times where I would start tour and I'd be so stressed out that I wouldn't be able to go to the bathroom. And people were like, just drink some coffee, man. And I was always like, what? Yeah. And they're like, you got to drink black coffee though. Like you have to, like, if what you're saying to us, and obviously I was really just dehydrated and not drinking enough water.
Yeah.
Knowing what I know now and more understanding us as humans biologically, I needed to drink more water or fluids, hydrating fluids. But so I started drinking coffee, and then, then you're traveling. So it's always Starbucks, etc. And I think I fell into that phase where it's a good segue, but finding the process of coffee and our generation's version of it is probably the last 6-ish years of my life, where, like everything else in this general millennial scenario generation, craft cocktails, craft beer, which is huge.
Oh, yeah.
Coffee has fallen into that as well. And it's just... the hope for me, like the rest of the things in our generation, is it's a lot at times, but somebody's looked at it differently, like treating it more delicately. It's coming from a far off place. It's from a certain crop. We got this from a family that has, they literally tore and tilled up their land because they live in the perfect climate for coffee, and now they're growing coffee. So we want to treat it with reverence. We're not just going to throw all these coffee beans from all over the world in one bag and roast it until it's basically tar. We want to treat this with reverence, and I appreciate that part. Again, I think it's taken a little too far at times, but I have friends that do that for a living now, and I appreciate their attention to detail. So the idea being, if it's roasted a certain way, if it's from a certain region of the world, and you brew it as properly as you can, the coffee doesn't just taste like coffee, it can taste like other things. And so exploring that it's been cool. It's annoying. I got really deep into it for a while, too far. And then you sort of scale it back like anything else when you go way left field on things, and you learn about it, and then you find your practices. But for me, similar to where we started this conversation with sitting quietly, putting a record on, taking some time to slow down, that's my coffee process, because I make pour over coffees pretty much every day for the most part, unless I don't have time, and that you have to slow down, either because you're going to not make a good cup of coffee, or you're going to ruin the things, which is usually glass or ceramic. So if you don't take a minute to slow down, you just end up with a bad coffee or a broken equipment. And that part is what I enjoy. It's a little bit of my morning meditation, because you have to take 5 minutes. There's a 5-minute window of you have to, start boiling water, grind the coffee, measure it to a certain weight and grind it, clean out the device you're using, put the coffee grounds in, pour to a certain weight, and then you start a timer. So that there's a whole, it's a sort of a meditative process for me. That it was funny. My mom, when I started to get into coffee, my mom was like, I don't get it. Turn the pot on, put the grinds in.
Right.
20 minutes later, there's coffee. And then I had gotten into it, and then my parents were visiting, and my mom watched me. She watched me earlier do it, and then let's say 6 months to a year later, and she just was like, oh yeah, I get it. This is your thing, and you can do this. Now you're just having a conversation. You're not thinking, you're just doing, because you've done this so many times now. And it's the idea of the once you master something, if you can teach it to someone else, you truly learned it, right? And that's what my mom was saying. You're to that point. I can just tell you're to that point. I'm like, yeah. I don't think I've perfected it like the barista champion of the world has. I just don't. We have a dear friend, Brian Marquis, who he and I that's what we talk about most: coffee. And then we talk about wristwatches, because that's another hobby of mine, and that's a terrible hobby. Anybody listening, don't get into that. It's not worth it. It's like getting into skiing. There's not enough money in the world. But we talk about coffee and how we both feel like we can never. He has better equipment than I have now, and I had probably top of the line stuff for a while, and he just got really fantastic equipment. He's like, it still doesn't taste as good as if someone makes it at a coffee shop for me. I'm like, yeah, I think we're missing something.
Sure, yeah.
Or is it the idea that when you go out for a meal, it's just because somebody else prepared it, it just tastes better, And so we're both in the pursuit of that perfect cup of coffee. And there's some days where you feel pretty good about it, and there's days where you don't. I don't know. It's just, it's become a hobby. I had a little side business for a while here in Nashville doing small events for people just because I enjoyed that, like bringing coffee to people. I also make cold brew, which it's one of the easiest. I've had so many friends hit me up about this. I'm like, yep, you just got to grind it right, and you literally leave it on your counter. It's not, and time it. That's it.
Yeah.
You know, and you wonder why it costs $5 for a cup of it out, and I still wonder because it's not. It's probably the least processed type. You know, there's work that goes into it. Don't get me wrong, but yeah, and so then it's just become a passion and a hobby and a meditative thing for me.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I think that overall, I just think it's a really cool pursuit. I'm not a coffee person anyway. I love tea, but like I can't appreciate what all goes into coffee. And I think it's so cool. A couple of takeaways from that is just like that meditative space that you get to make that coffee and the time you put into it. You know, I think that's so cool. And then also what it gives you in, like you brought it up when you said Buenos Aires. You go there and then you see their coffee culture. And that's such a cool part of traveling, is seeing cultures. And then to have a connection to, I love coffee. I'm in pursuit of that perfect cup of coffee. Then you're like, well, shit, what do they do in Buenos Aires?
Right.
And then you get to connect with that culture, and then you get to learn. And I just think in life, that is just such a beautiful way to experience life. Like, find the shit that you love and love it. Enjoy it. When you go somewhere else, find out. There's people everywhere that are going to love that. Connect with those people, and you get to learn from them and see how they prepare it and everything. And I just love that. I think that's such a beautiful part.
That's for me, go back to travel. That's usually what you just said is my goal wherever I end up. It's finding that place in the world. But you know, in the States, you start to have your favorites, and I love that probably one of the best coffee roasters in our country is in Arkansas.
Amazing.
A state that no one you know, Seattle has its culture still. It's grown back to still being closer to the top, but one of the best in the country, Onyx Coffee Lab. It is, and it's in Arkansas.
Amazing.
It's a place you would never. It's not even in Little Rock. It's out, like it's in a smaller city in Arkansas.
That's so cool.
So yeah, those are my favorite. And then when we were in South America, we went to a lab coffee, and then we went to a coffee lab, 2 different places, 2 different countries. And the coffee lab, the folks that are preparing, you have to sit. You can't just order like, oh, let me get a coffee. No. And I love and hate that, but I was coming for the experience that day. So you have to be seated, and all of the people, you literally walk through. It's a house. The place is still a house. You walk through the kitchen where they're making the coffee in the kitchen of the house that existed. They've modified it, to make sense commercially, but it's still the kitchen. And we ended up sitting in the front, like it was like a front sort of solarium room of this place. It was hot too. It was a mistake, but yeah. And all the people there wear jumpsuits. That's their uniform, like Slipknot style, like just blue jumpsuits. That was their thing. And you pick a coffee off the list, and it's all from nearby because you're in that region of the world already. So it's not like you're getting coffee from who knows where or the other side of the world. It's coming from, that part of the world. I think Coffee Lab was Brazil, so of course, like they're one of the coffee cultures of the world. But dude comes over, puts a cup down, puts a brewer, I think it was a V60 at that point, down. Doesn't like the like nonsense, too deep into coffee thing is you have to have like a gooseneck kettle. It's a very slow process. Dude just came over with like a pitcher of water and just whoosh, right down, stirred it with a spoon and walked away. And I was like, where is this in America? They took all the pretense out of this. It's not pretentious. It's elevated. It's an elevated version of coffee still. It's delicate. It's localized.
Yeah.
But yeah, it blew my mind. He just poured, like, there was a method, but it wasn't as bastardized and like broken down. And I love that, but it also annoys me sometimes too. So that's my when I'm on the road traveling, that's my pursuit. Good cup of coffee if I can't make one for myself. I don't know. I'm very bummed that we're not able to travel as much right now.
Yeah.
Or not feel safe too. I think that's the scarier part.
Totally.
So the hope is that eventually when the world starts spinning right again, even if we're masked but safer, that's fine. I don't know. Going. We talked a little bit about this the other day. I hope that the world starts to think about others more in this, and this would slow down faster. It just seems like people are over it and want to just go back to their lives before we're really ready to. And, obviously we can't control people. The government can't control people, especially here in America. Americans will be Americans, take us or leave us. And I just wish folks were looking at it with a little bit more empathy. That's it.
Yeah.
I'd like to get back to traveling the world again.
Yes. I would too, brother.
But yeah, going back to this concept, we were talking a little off mic, like the concept of current media.
Yeah.
And I, in my adult life so far, have started to collect vinyl records.
Same.
And I don't have a crazy collection. I think there's a point where it's too much, like anything these days, where there's just too much of something. But my 2021 goals now are at least once a week. I have a journal. I have journals, plural, where I've been good at it some years, and I'm like, I'm going to write in this every day. And that's just not...
It's tough.
It's not realistic. And so last weekend, I sort of set the goal as I would like to try to do it once a week. So 52 journal entries in a year seems a little bit more achievable.
Totally.
And it was a thing where I was like, I'm going to put a record on, particularly jazz later at night. That's sort of a vibe to me. And that's where a large part of my collecting stems from. You can go get a new record anywhere now, order it online. But if I'm going to a record shop, that's what I'm looking for. Something that you can't find anymore because it just doesn't exist. It was in someone's record collection. They might have bought it in 1965 and then they sold it because records went out of style or they passed away or whatever. So there's history. And last week I put on some jazz, Coltrane specifically. I don't have a big Coltrane collection, but there's one record that I've always enjoyed. And the craziest part to me is the distance between physically holding it,
yes,
turning pieces of equipment on that make noise. They make little clicks, and as the electronics or the amplifiers or things are coming on, right? You hear the speakers start, and then you have to physically take something out of something else and place it on and put, things together to make the sound, right? It's a thing that anybody in this generation that comes after us now, they may never experience it. Yeah. Because their parents who are at the top of our age bracket probably don't necessarily have vinyl. It's sort of only come in vogue again in certain sectors of our age group, right?
Right, yeah.
Collectors and certain music styles and just like, I'll just say, air quotes, hip people, but like not everybody
totally.
collected that. It like went out of, like our parents were like, good riddance. This was like, to them, it was like the worst format of music because other things came and it sounded better or it was easier or whatever. And then it sort of took this full circle moment to come back and people realizing the history of it and the importance of it and that things, as much as most of it's been digitized, I don't know. Anyway, to go back to my original thought, it's just like, I wonder if my nephews will ever, I mean, their parents are cool. They have some vinyl, but like that experience of like taking a deep breath and being delicate and then sitting in a quiet room with calm music playing and it's not perfect. Right. And the people playing it didn't play it perfect. They played it as perfect as they could for the time at their ability, which for me, jazz, those guys were the top, like, a Coltrane, and I love Sonny Stitt and oh my God, Bird, Charlie Parker, like those dudes were the pinnacle of that era of jazz, but they're human. They still, the idea of jazz is it's all feel.
Totally.
There really isn't a perfect, there's no quantized, auto-tuned moment where you press a thing and it's exactly it's not. It was all just, there's, I don't know. Yeah, after I was listening, I watched a whole Vox video, which that channel online does a great job at breaking down music, all types of music. Like I've watched them on triplet trap hip hop, where they like break it down to a musical level, not just you think it has no musicality or whatever, but I've watched videos where they break down the like that flow there's still a metric in it, and apparently, I hope I have this right. I'm gonna hope I'm quoting or having this right, but triplet trap hip hop has the same metric metering as dun 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 dun.
No way.
Dun 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 dun. It's the same. Like from a musical standpoint, as you would look at it on a music staff, there's some weird crossover there, which I thought was the coolest thing.
That's super
But anyway,
cool, yeah.
Vox also broke down Giant Steps by Coltrane, which is supposed to be, that's like, if you're going to be a young person and say, I want to play jazz, like that's your swan song. Like if you can get through that, playing any of like the piano parts, the sax parts, like anything, because he supposedly wrote that where it just doesn't follow a traditional anything.
Yeah.
Like it's moving between notes that it shouldn't, but it just makes sense because it makes sense. And I don't know, it was just, that's where I led. I had quiet, I journaled, and I was just journaling about the experience of sitting and the moving through of, there was a process to playing music, and you have to think about it when you play vinyl, because then one side of the record ends. So you have to physically get back up and flip it. And it takes multiple pieces of equipment versus, I've watched things on the internet now where, it's like our age people talking to kids, 7-year-old kids. And they're like, wait, you don't just hit a button and it plays and there's noise. And they were like, no, you used to have to have headphones or speakers, or the device still had to have something else plugged. And it just kind of blows kids' minds, because now they pull out their phone and it plays, like, name a song in the world, in the universe, and it plays. So I don't know, that's been part of my year of like just remembering to even just an hour to sort of slow down, and that's a good reminder of how to. So I've been trying to journal. I've made it 2 weeks in a row now successfully. I'm gonna try to keep moving that forward, even if it's just journaling. If I'm somewhere else that I can't necessarily play vinyl, but it's just been, to me, that's been an interesting focus of where we're going with media, because now we're sort of constantly barraged by it, and it's interesting to me and I love it, but also I don't know,
yeah, man. As you were talking about vinyl, I was like, it was so interesting to me when I first learned that to change a track, you had to pick up the needle and go to the next big marking.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm thinking about it as you're talking too. I was like, oh, well then shit, it's really easy to just hit skip on a CD player, which that was the next step towards it. And then, yeah, just that sitting down and like putting it in and hitting play. And I think that's a beautiful way to journal too, is like putting a vinyl on. I used to do that when I started my sobriety journey, man. I had a vinyl in the basement room that I was staying in at my parents', and I would just listen to my record collection. And I think I still have like 200. And I was like, okay, if I'm going to have these, I have to listen to them. And if I don't like it, then I'll donate it, or I'll give it to a friend and pass it along. But I just went straight through my vinyl collection, and I would play it and I would write, and it was so beautiful. But yeah, it is like the bombarding of media is something that, or the availability of all these new apps and everything, is you're just constantly, you can be looking at anything. Your phone, like you said, your phones, you can pick up your phone and you can connect to anywhere in the world at any second. And I remember the sound of AOL the first time I had to connect to the internet. And then we had to do it. And then it was just the waiting game. And kids these days have no idea what I'm even talking about right now.
Yeah, there was just a disconnect. There's so many things to distract us as adults who have seen different the shift in computers becoming smaller, pocket-sized, connected at all times, and we grew up with it, so we are able to adapt. But they just have never known anything but it
Right.
at this point. It still blows my mind that I've watched some of the Kids React series. I don't know if you've ever seen any of that on YouTube, where it's guys our age that give kids like pieces of old technology and just go like, what is this?
Yeah.
And they go like, oh, this kid, they flash their age, and I'm like, oh yeah, they're 13 or 15, and I'm like, oh my god, they were born after the year 2000 though. That means they were born like right now. If you're not 21 years old, you were born after the year. If you're not older than 22, you were born in the year 2000 or later, which blows my mind.
Yeah.
Which means they never saw the struggle of Napster and illegally downloading MP3s and then having to put them somewhere,
right?
Which was usually a CD ripper, reader, writer.
Yeah.
The most illegal time.
Dude.
We were all pirates. I don't think there's going to be another generation where like 13-year-old kids can say that they're pirates. Majority of them.
Yeah.
And they were asking their parents for a computer so they could pirate things. Like that's what we were. Sorry, millennials and beyond. You're a pirate. Did you download a Blink-182 MP3 and put it on a CD-ROM? You're a pirate.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. And it just made me think there were so many times I would search for a song and I would scroll, find it because I was trying to make a full CD.
Yep.
And I would download it and I didn't check it.
And it was either terrible or not the song. Yep.
Yes, it was a different song, and I'd play through the album, and it was going just fine until that one song, and then I was like, fuck, man. Well, back to LimeWire or Napster and re-download it and then re-burn a CD.
I just watched a really great short 3-parter, but they were like 15-minute breakdowns of that era. It was basically the concept of this little series was like the advent of the MP3, right? They talked to the scientist that invented it. Like it starts there because that was in the 80s, and it works its way all the way up to right now where like open your phone, name a song, listen to it, right? And that middle ground of that era, the year 2000, Sean Parker and Sean Fanning, those dudes, Napster, those two guys. There's a line in The Social Network that Justin Timberlake delivers where he's like, I changed the music industry. And what's his face, this character, oh my God, what's the dude? Andrew Garfield's character who played Eduardo Saverin, who was the co-founder of Facebook, says like, no, you didn't. They won. And he's like, Tower Records doesn't exist. There's just, and you're like, oh my, like, you're like, okay, cool. Like I get the fact that that movie was written after the fact so they could write it. It was written post,
sure,
whatever. But you're like, holy shit, no, that's like the truest line of all time. They did. It brought down tycoons of the industry.
Yeah.
And they couldn't catch up because they laughed. And in this series, the woman that was the president of the RIAA, which is the Recording Institute of America, they're the ones that certify, like when you sell 1 million records, they certify that. So like if you've ever seen or been around the music industry and seen people with platinum plaques on their walls, they come from Nick's pointing. Oh yeah, Lindsay has one. Lindsay's got one so the recording industry, that's a Canadian one, but I think I think they still technically certify it somehow. Anyway, there's these bodies that certify records sold. They keep track of all those things. They keep in touch with publishers, etc. Right? They laughed a little bit at the idea, this whole Napster thing at first. And supposedly what we know of as Spotify now, right? Spotify, Apple Music, even, Google has their own, Amazon has their own. Like they were calling it the like dorky, boomer version of it. They were calling it the celestial jukebox. That was the term. And
it's a cool term.
It's a true term.
Yeah.
In theory, it's like name a song, right?
Right.
But so the woman that was the CEO of or president of RIAA at the time, let's call that the year 2000. I can't remember exactly. Napster was fully running, and they were keeping tabs on it. She brought all the heads they had their normal like big board meeting. Every head of every label was there in a giant boardroom. She had them wheel in a computer with speakers, and she would just say like, "Hey Sony, what's your number one hit on the radio right now?" And she was like, and I typed it in and hit search, and I played it. And then I said, "Columbia, what's your number one hit?" And same thing. And she did this over and then she said, "All right, now let's go deeper. Name an artist, a legacy artist. Oh, Madonna. Here's Madonna's entire collection." And she went like piece by piece, showing them that this exists on. And then she said, and then the thing that really like they still were all sort of whatever. Then I said, name a song that's not out yet. Name an unreleased artist's track. And she's like, and there were a bunch of those too. And she's like, and that was when they started going after people. They thought they were untouchable, that this was a joke, that it was two kids in their college dorm room. And then once they realized it wasn't that same woman that was the president ultimately quit though when they started going after people. She's like, we can go after organizations, we can try to take down these sites, we can take down these share platforms. She's like, I didn't like the fact that they were going to start going after like Kevin's grandma. She's like, it was too far for her. And I don't disagree. Like, what did they got a $2,000 check from Kevin's grandma. Like, what did that really do in the grand scheme? And then ultimately this dude in Switzerland, where's the guy from Spotify from? Ultimately,
yeah, I think Sweden.
5 years down the line, that dude just made you guys obsolete anyway.
Yeah.
So it's like,
yeah.
It's like spitting in the wind at that point, if you ask me. But anyway, I digress. But yeah, media, just media. There it is in a 20-year span. We went from the industry at its height, CD sales were insane, charge you $17 a CD, and now you pay $10 or less a month. Pick a song.
Any song.
And so the value of everything else when you're an artist goes up. So our livelihood, I also up until this year toured to make my living. That's what artists had turned to. Like that became the focus of where to make money and grow an audience and grow traction. And so it's weird, not to bring it and make it morbid now, but to bring it down to like, yeah, and that platform is now. So like, where are musicians making money right now? Where are they, or where will they make money in the future even? Because you figure the hope is it's going to pick back up. We'll get to travel again, period. Because I know Nick is an avid traveler as well. I think that's what I miss the most at this point. But yeah, I don't know. Anyway, so media, it's crazy to think like it had a high value at a point. Your goal was to be able to produce media and put it out and it be purchased and consumed by fans or picked up by radio.
Right.
And now name a song, listen to it whenever you want in your pocket. And it's, I don't know. It's kind of mind boggling.
It is. When you think about this, like what I can do if I just sit here and I grab my phone as I'm talking to you, you could say a song and I'll play it. I'll find it very simply in no time at all. To think like what it was when we were kids of like going to the store, finding a CD, even finding that song was something kind of incredible. It was like, oh, I like this song. How do I know what this song is? Where did I hear this song?
Right.
I heard it walking through a JCPenney in the mall, and I heard the song, and then I heard it again, and then I figured out who it was, and I had to ask somebody who it was, or whatever it was. Like how you found music back in the day was pretty nuts in itself.
The crazy part is now you just tell your phone, like, what is this playing? And it tells you what it is, and you're like, technology.
Yeah. All right. I have two questions for you.
Shoot.
We'll start with the first one. And it's, what would you want the world to know about you?
Ooh. That's a fantastic question. I would want the world to know about me that I am I like to notice the little things. I try my hardest in life, and I have a terrible memory for names, but I might remember what coffee you drank, and the next time I see you, maybe I show up with it. And that's helped me in my career, and I've tried to explain that to people, that doing what we do for a living, it's understanding other people. Like, you're touring and there's an artist and there's a lot at stake, but somebody comes into the room and they go, hey, what is Scott usually blah, blah, blah. And you just know the answer, because you listened and paid attention to details. I always hope that would help me in my romantic life. And I think it maybe has finally at this point, but yeah, just the details, that I pay attention to details, and that I have a good heart at the end. I might be a little more cynical than I ever have been at this point in my life, but at the core, I like little details and things, and that I have a good heart in moving forward in the world.
Yeah. I mean, in the small time of my life that I've known you, I feel all of those things. And I say it all the time of why I love doing this, but it's just cool. Like, I've grown to know you over the last year and a half now, and it's been super cool. But now to have a pointed conversation of let's get to some depth. I mean, we had a conversation, which it's crazy that it's already been a week ago, and I really enjoy it. So I've really enjoyed that, and I will second what Evan just said about himself.
Well, I appreciate that. Same. I know I get a little heated sometimes. That's the New Jersey in me, but
yeah, that's all right.
At the core, I just want the world to be a better place. So.
Yeah. So it comes from a good heart.
Yeah.
All right. And then if you had the ear of everybody in the world, what would you say to them?
Currently, I would say, think about your neighbors more, your other family, your grandma, and just listen to the people around you. For now, wear a mask and like, let's be done with this and get back to let's go 6 months about thinking about other people and be done with this virus, or have squished it down, or have gotten it to a point where it's controllable and containable. And we can all go back to concerts and seeing movies in movie theaters and, traveling without fear. I don't know. Yeah, that's it right now. I want people to be more empathetic to others and think about others. And yeah, for now, that specifically is what would be my goal. But yeah, in general, just be more, I would love the world to be more empathetic. Think about, put yourself in someone else's shoes for a minute, a day.
Yeah.
And think about that. And we're not all perfect. I happily tell you I'm not. And I have days where I don't want to do that. But I think if we all could do that more, the world would be a better place.
Yeah. And I mean, none of us will ever be perfect, but we can all think about others. And when you look at someone, actually give a shit what's going on with that person.
Yeah.
I think just in general, even past COVID, that's something that has to happen in this world.
Sure. Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
It's just, we have to get to a point of like generally giving a shit about people. Yeah. Well, dude, this has been so awesome.
Yeah, seriously, I'm glad we rescheduled a few times. I'm glad to finally nail it down. And
yeah.
Dude, I'm excited for the podcast. I'm so glad you just went head first. You have two podcasts going at once right now. I've been thoroughly impressed with that. So
yeah,
I'm happy to be a part of it. Finally.
Yeah, man, me too. So yeah, dude, and it's funny. We'll be socially distanced, hanging in a couple hours at a fire.
Yeah. By the way, we are in the same room, but we are far apart on separate microphones.
Yes,
I feel like we have to tell everybody this.
We're distanced
in 2020.
We're taking care of each other.
We are.
We are looking at each other.
Yes.
But yes, this is only my third time doing an actual. Well, second, because 2 of them were Lindsay. But
it's fair. But it's good practice.
Yeah.
I miss it. It's why I've stalled on my own, and
yeah,
I don't know if I'll go back, because I think the Zoom interview has just become a standard now, and I love that because I think it's connected more people this
Totally.
year. We've gotten some more conversations we wouldn't have had people's lives not slowed down.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I commend you for that too, for doing it on that end, because that's a little bit more difficult for sure.
Yeah. Well, awesome, dude. Thanks again, man.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Peace. Thank you for listening to the Beautifully Human podcast. To hear more beautiful stories from beautiful humans, follow us on Spotify and rate and subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts. Follow us on Instagram at Wanderlust Moon Duo. Peace signs up.